Absolutely. Other things on the horizon for you. You head off to Syracuse. I'm assuming that'll be today,
Yeah.
since that game is tomorrow
Yep.
with the Big Ten rules. So back at it for you, but at least you can start your focus back to one sport at least now in basketball. And the Hoosiers off to a great start at 6-0. I think, Don, this is only the second time in like a decade they've been 5 or 6-0 at this juncture. The toughest test of the season for them as they head off on the road to the Carrier Dome to take on a team in Syracuse in that matchup zone of Jim Boeheim's.
Well, it will be an interesting matchup, to say the least. Syracuse is 3-3 on the year. They struggled a little bit down in the Bahamas. They lost 2 ball games down there. They got beat by Colgate earlier in the season. They're a team that has the same kind of length that we've seen out of Syracuse in the past for that zone defense that they play, but they're not playing that defense based on what we read in the papers as strongly as they have in the past because they've given up a lot of points to just about everybody that they played against at this point. So even though they're a 3-3 ball club, though, Indiana has yet to play on the road this year, so they haven't handled that atmosphere when they're away from the energy that the Indiana crowd brings to the table. I think this is going to be a very interesting test for this Indiana basketball team. And Syracuse is very capable of putting a bunch of points on the scoreboard. I don't think they're a real deep team at this point, based on what I've seen from their box scores. He tends to play only 8 or 9 guys, and the guys that come off the bench don't play very many minutes. So he plays his starters a lot. 2 of his boys play for him, Jim Boeheim's boys, Buddy and Jimmy. They both play for Coach Boeheim. Interesting scenario in this matchup. And again, I think it's a crucial ball game for this Indiana basketball team because you've got to be able to play on the road just like you do at home. We'll find out just where they're at in that regard.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting because not only does Boeheim, they both start. So they're both starters on that team. They're 3-3 right now, so they have not lit it up like normally, but that doesn't mean a whole lot because we've seen a lot of these teams just get things going and until you get Indiana has come together. It's a little sooner than I think a lot of people expected. Although Marshall gave them a nice test. What an athletic team Marshall was. Indiana just couldn't put them away. And even though I've got to talk about how about the performance of Trace Jackson Davis? 43 points, Assembly Hall record. You were there the last time that record was set with Steve Alford.
Yep.
And that came with him shooting 3-pointers. So we got to point out that Trace Jackson Davis did it with, he might have had 1 3-pointer, but that was the old-fashioned way.
Yep, 18 twos in the ball game. So he did a phenomenal job in that contest. He also shot free throws well, which was a plus because he hasn't done that very well this year. That's about the only thing he hasn't done well. He had 5 block shots in this game. Last year, he had 18 block shots all season long. Now he's got, I think, 22 or 23 block shots, and we're only 6 games into the season. That tells you exactly why Trace Jackson Davis has changed because he is playing both ends of the floor. He is playing extremely hard for however long he's in the game, which is 32, 33, 34 minutes sometimes. This guy has been such a plus for this basketball team. And you got to think about it. He's been the leader of this top ball club scoring wise and those kinds of things for the last 2 years. And now he's a totally different player in the sense of how hard he plays. So what a find he has been for Mike Woodson here, and what Mike has done to motivate him to play like he's playing at this juncture. It's just special in that regard.
Well, I think this has worked out for both of them. Obviously, Mike Woodson needed Trace Jackson Davis to come back because without him, obviously, Indiana would be a very, very different team. Right. But Trace Jackson Davis needed Mike Davis. He didn't have this in his game like you talked about. He's become a dog, as the guys like to say. He is looking to score, looking to get to the basket, looking to block, looking to do the things that he needs to do the whole time he's on the floor. And more importantly, he seems like he's looking to be a leader for this team.
Right, exactly. There's no doubt that he is the leader of this ball club. He's the guy that all these guys look up to. And his performance in this last ball game it just puts a stamp on that thinking process. There's no question about it, because they were looking, his teammates were looking for him in this ball game. They were trying, because here's the other thing, Marshall didn't really double team. And now I think that was a mistake on their part.
Shocking.
Yes. You would sit there and go, why aren't you double teaming more, or at least digging down every time he touches the ball? But they were not doing that very much at all. So it was an opportunity for Trace to just go off, and he did. I think the other guy that has stepped up and become a major factor on this team is Xavier Johnson at the point guard position. Without finishing the last 3 ball games, he's played a lot more minutes. He's not gotten into foul trouble as he did earlier. That's a plus. Christian Lander's gotten more playing time. I think he's I don't think he's been quite as good here in the last game or two as he was earlier on this season. But again, he's a learner. He's one of those guys that's learning the position, learning what Mike Woodson wants from a point guard. The turnovers are still bugging me a little bit. There's too many of those. But it's not just Lander or anybody else that's doing it. It's a combination of guys that are trying to make plays at this point. So they're still in that process of learning one another, learning what works, what doesn't. I just think we're seeing a really good Indiana basketball team. Not even get close to their potential yet, but still doing a lot of really good things. Parker Stewart started to shoot shots. Miller Kopp's gotten better here the last few ball games with his scoring. And we've got guys that come off the bench and do a pretty good job in that vein. Although I didn't think the starters or the reserves in the game against Marshall were anywhere near what they had been previously.
No, they have not. And the only one that I give some props to is Tamar Bates, who continues to come on. He's becoming that man. He's that guy off the bench that it's like bringing another starter in now, because actually he's the 5th highest scorer on the team right now.
Right.
At 7 points per game, but bringing that force in, and I think he seems to relish in that. He seems to, man, when he comes in, he brings a lot of energy.
Yeah, there's no question. Tamar is going to be a real special player at Indiana. I don't think there's any question about it. And you got to have, if you've got a freshman that can step in right away and do some of the things that he's doing, it's just a huge plus for this basketball team. And I think he's the guy at this point that can do that. At the same time, I hope that they can get Finney back here shortly with whatever his issue is, because he brings a defensive presence that you have with nobody else on that roster. He can flat out guard people. He's not shooting the ball worth a nickel at this point. Hopefully he gets better at that. And the one thing I know about Mike Woodson, he'll try to build that confidence in this guy as well.